Hi everyone, you're watching The Talk on Vent TV. I'm Matthew, and today I'm joined by Tina, Luka and Michael here. And we're here to give you the talk that your parents most likely never did. You know, a lot of young people talk about getting the talk by their parents about things around sex and even sexuality to a lesser extent. But for queer people, we don't get that. So our idea was to talk about issues around sex and sexuality, specifically to the LGBT community. And yeah, just discuss things we don't normally get to talk about. So today we're going to talk about things around negotiating sex, and in particular consent. So I guess I'll just get started. Basically, I guess, how important is consent to you guys? And I guess, does this change depending on the circumstance? So depending on where you are, for instance, if you're at a club, if you're online, if you're even in a relationship, you know, how important is consent? And, you know, depending on the circumstance. Tina?
I think consent when it comes to sex is vital. It's just whether you're in a monogamous or in a relationship or if you're in a club or anywhere, I think having consensual sex is important because it gives you a understanding between two people. You know, it's both understanding, it's okay, you know, I'm willing to do this, you know, it's giving that boundary. Because the moment you don't do that, someone takes control, and that's where people start having effects from it. You know, insecurities or personal issues, and so it causes a lot of complications. And so when you do have consent and communication, especially, it will help with how people treat other people, especially as well, because you just have a respect when you have consent.
Totally. Yeah. I guess, yeah, Luka, have you experienced that, like where you had to try to navigate?
I think consent is definitely vital. I think there needs to be more than just the consent for the act of sex. There needs to definitely be discussions around, you know, what that act will entail. So, particularly for me being trans, I might, if I was with a partner, you know, I might consent to have sex with them, but it really just varies on to what extent. So. Particularly being in a relationship with two trans guys at the same time, it's like you have to kind of like, yes, we want to have sex, but what we're okay with and what we're not, and for each person that might be different, and definitely within different situations as well. So within clubs and anything like that, just for anybody in general, I think, you know, whether you're at a club and somebody just like grabs you, I don't think that is okay. Yeah. I know there's clubs where I think you might have known that it is like that's specifically the kind of environment of the club, but. And
in that instance, I guess people that do that, for instance, you're at a club and a guy or a girl walks over and touches you without any invitation, any kind of, you know, idea that you actually wanted that at all. Why do you think people do that?
Well, I
Michael,
think just
anyway.
well, first of all, just going back like what Luka was saying, like I think it's really like obviously consent is an ongoing thing, and it's not just like I consent to sex, like end of story. It's like, well, no, it's like as you're saying, what is that sex, and like, you know, like what is that involving at this particular time with this particular person, and you know, every like 30 seconds you might be doing something different. You know, you need to like constantly be like checking with yourself and your partner and all of that. But to answer your question, like, why is kind of sexual assault, I just think my personal experience of, like, in the gay male community, in nightclubs that are catered for gay men, like, sexual assault is, like, somewhat rampant, but, like, played down a lot because they don't consider it sexual assault. It's just kind of groping on the dance floor or something. But I think for gay men, you know, we've obviously been starved of places where we can be kind of open and comfortable with ourselves as a community, and particularly as a sexual community, you know, where we can be, you know, open sexually with each other. We can make out on the dance floor, or we can, you know, just generally be in a club. And so because we're starved of those places, we create these places for ourselves that are hyper-sexualized. And I think that's why just being in that place, some people kind of misconstrue it as consent. Like, you know, we're in this club, or even if it's like a sex on premises club or a bathhouse or something like that, you know, because it's a sexualized environment, you know, consent is not really something that's negotiated too much because it's just assumed for some people. Yeah.
And that's exactly right. I was going to say the similar thing. You know, I can only speak from my experience as a gay male, but in environments like a beat where some people are cruising, or a sex on premises venue, or a club, I feel like a lot of people have this idea that because you're in that space, and it can be quite sexually charged in some areas. It almost gives somebody a free pass or an entitlement over somebody else's body. So they feel like, oh, well, I'm having a drink, people are drinking, people are dancing, like I can grab you. Or, for instance, on a more pronounced level at a sex on premises venue, they feel like they can just touch you wherever and start to instigate, something like sex. And I feel like no one ever questions it, or not many people ever speak out about it because, they think, well, I'm in this environment, I kind of not, like they might think, oh, I was asking for it, or I was,
you came here to have sex. Like,
yeah, right?
Aren't you okay with me just touching you?
And that's why it's something that just a lot of people don't necessarily, they might think consent is such a common sense thing, If you're having sex with someone, obviously you're doing it with someone who wants to do it, but there are a lot of nuanced instances, like at a club or a bar or, at a sauna or a beat, where the lines of consent are a lot more blurred, and I think a lot of people don't really think about how, the fact that they're not entitled to somebody's body, the fact that they do need to actually be communicating with someone, even if it's non-verbally, even if the other person has somehow physically indicated that they're interested before they do anything.
Tapping.
Well, I mean, yeah.
So I think that's the problem, though. Like when you're in that particular environment, or in a club environment, or so on and so on, it's one of those environments that people do kind of go into it expecting that. Mm-hmm. And so when there's miscommunication sometimes, you sit there and you're flirting with somebody and like you think they're flirting back, and then you go over there and they're like, oh, yeah, they're not actually interested. And so the communication, it's not clear just because you're in that environment. Therefore, you were kind of forced to kind of go read so much. And so people don't know how to read. And so they will just go, oh yeah, I'll come and talk to them. Oh, they're dancing. And sometimes, like I've seen, for lesbians, because we've got that whole, girls can be close to each other and dance and not mean anything. It's just purely dancing. And so there is miscommunication of like a girl, dancing really close and very sexual, but it's just two girls wanting to dance. Yeah. Like straight girls tend to do in clubs. But then one of them will get miscommunication going, oh, she's interested, and we'll try to do something. And of course, that's where the consent has to happen.
And then, if, for instance, if someone was doing that and you weren't interested and you said, no, sorry, I don't want this, a lot of times the other person might feel offended or hurt, like, oh, well, I'm here, like, I'm expecting that this is okay. And I think a lot of people just need to be more aware of the fact that they need to, just take on board consent and actually really make sure that what they're doing is wanted or warranted by the other person. But thank you so much. Accept it,
and actually accept rejection as well.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. I had a really nice talk, and thank you for joining us on the talk on Bent TV.